Among the speakers at today's Capitol Hill event for the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act was Abby Carr, whose success as a swimmer at Washington Christian Academy earned her a spot on a Division I college women's swim team, as well as at the U.S. Olympic trials. As an Ivy League swimmer, she's had the spotlight on her while competing in events alongside Leah Thomas, the male swimmer that the Ivy League and NCAA allowed to swim in women's events. Abby joins me now in studio. Abby, welcome to Washington Watch.
Thank you. I'm so grateful to be here.
Well, thank you for being here. Thank you for speaking out. And I want to start right there and ask you, what drove you to speak out on this issue?
Absolutely. Well, my mind immediately goes to a text I received from my stepdad this morning. And he said, I am so proud of you that you stand for your convictions. You stand in your convictions. And that phrase right there, I know what I believe as a conservative, and I know what I believe as a Christian. And at the time when Leah Thomas was racing when I was a freshman, I did not have that courage to stand for what I knew is true and what I knew is right. And now, as I've gained confidence as both a conservative and a Christian, I know I'm ready to stand for it.
I mean, as an elite swimmer, you grew up training with boys.
Absolutely, yes, I did.
Probably beat them. But what were the differences that you observed between female swimmers and male swimmers?
Where do I start? Well, I started swimming when I was 7, and I've been racing boys as long as I can remember. And up until I was 12, I was beating them. When I was 12, I'll never forget this, I had the pool record in the 200 butterfly, and it was faster than the boys' record. And then if you look at the spreadsheets from the meet, exactly a year later, it's drastically different because the boys were beginning to grow in a way that I wasn't. And I'll never forget, my coach pulled me out of the water one practice where I was just increasingly frustrated. I mean, he'll tell you I'm the most competitive person out there, right? And he's like, Abby, look, you've been beating these boys your whole life. You're not going to beat them anymore. And I was like, sure. Like, I wasn't thrilled by the implications of that, but it was obvious to me that they were physically changing in a way I wasn't. They were getting taller, their muscle mass was increasing, they were getting bigger. I was not. Now, if you were to look at the times from the 2022 Ivy Championships, my time is 15 seconds slower than the time that was put up by the top male swimmer. That's over an entire length of a pool of a difference. So, yes, those differences were very apparent to me, even at the age of 13.
So, is it fair that women would have to compete against men in women's sports?
Absolutely, it is not. And that's not a matter of identity. That's not a matter of personality. That's a simple, blunt reality of biology. I mean, I would love to beat men, but there isn't a world where that's going to happen, unfortunately. And that's not anti-feminist. That's just me speaking the scientific truth.
So what's the point of having women's sports if it's not for women?
You're asking me. It baffles me that this year we celebrated the 50th anniversary of Title IX, and yet it's almost as if we're going back in time and we're having to fight the same battle that so many women have fought before me. And today at the event, at the press conference, Representative Ehart said something to the effect of courage begets courage. And right now I feel more than ever that we have to encourage other female athletes to stand true in their convictions, like I said earlier, because it won't be a few isolated incidents. It's going to become recruitment spots. It's going to become the very few spots that are reserved for women are going to be taken by male athletes, and we have to fight for women's sports.
I want to go back to where you began with this when I asked you what prompted you to speak out on this, because, I mean, look, you're a freshman. And it's kind of, I would think, intimidating.
Yes, when Leah raced, I was a freshman. I just arrived on the team. Yeah.
And so, I mean, you kind of want to shrink back and just kind of fall in line and not get a lot of attention.
And I'll admit, I was apprehensive then. I was new to the team. I was new to the Ivy League. I felt like if I needed to make a name for myself, it was going to be in swimming, and I did. But now I understand that this is greater than me. It's greater than the individual. This is about every female athlete. This is about the 7- and 8-year-old girls that I coach back home and the recruitment spots they're going to go for in a few years.
But Abby, it's about even more than just sports, is it not?
Yes,
It's
I would
about
say
truth.
so. It is, because a society that denies objective reality, I mean, what sort of society is that, right? If we're denying basic reality, if we're denying basic truths, and it'll be the Democrats who say they rely on science and then perpetrate this narrative. It's pitifully ironic, in my opinion.
You're absolutely right. I mean, but today it's women's sports, but what would it be tomorrow if we deny that very basic reality that women and men are different? Not one is of more value than the other,
No.
just different.
Just different. It reminds me of one of my good friends wrestled in high school, and he was a smaller guy, and he wrestled at 113. They didn't put him up against guys who were 200 pounds because it was a blunt distinction between wrestling in 113 and wrestling in 150, 200. Similarly, we can understand that men and women are biologically different, and that is not a bad thing, but we need to have the respective categories. So let's let trans athletes race in their respective categories. Let's not put them up against women, because that is not fair.
Abby, just have about 30 seconds left. What would you say to other young women athletes that may find themselves in the same position you were in?
Absolutely. Stand true in your convictions. Don't be afraid to speak the truth. The time is now. The Democrat Party is fighting for a future where there will not be spots left for women's sports, and we have to preserve those if they won't.
Abby, thank you so much for
Thank you.
joining us today, and thank you for the courage to speak out and stand up for truth and what we know to be right.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And before you leave, give me a few tips on how I can improve my time.
Oh, dear. Let's see. Quick tips. Always use your kick and breathe to both sides.
That I have to work on. I don't have that one down yet. Abby, good to see you.
Great to be with you.